This video is going to cover vendor management, and I'm going to talk about three things. One, I'm going to introduce the vendor catalog and explain what it is. Secondly, I'm going to talk about approving or reviewing and approving or not approving vendors submitted by residents. And finally, I'm going to show you how to add a new vendor to the vendor catalog. Okay. So I'm on the main guard screen here, and under Community, there is a tab called Vendors. And you'll also notice beside it, there is a blue box with a 2. That actually indicates the number of unapproved vendors that are out there to be reviewed. And so I'll talk about that in just a minute. First, let's start by going into vendors by clicking on it. And what you see here are 3 tabs. There's approved vendors, and there's 29 in the test environment. In the production environment, I believe there is 1,485 approved vendors. So when we're doing our training, we'll take a look at that. It's much larger, but I don't want to use that to do what I'm doing here for the video. There are 2 unapproved vendors, so if you click on that tab, you can see those unapproved vendors. And then there is a tab for types. I believe there's 58 types currently in the production system. There's only 12 here. And those will typically, you won't be doing anything to those. They're just there to use when you're creating vendors to add to the catalog. So when you hear the phrase vendor catalog, it's this tab of approved vendors and all the vendors we have. And you'll notice we have a name, and these names now are the corporate names for the companies. They're not, American Shades or German Roll Shutters. It's the actual name, and there's only one of them. And so when residents, if residents were to register a visit, they would all have this name. So this catalog is basically the source of all the vendors in the system, and it's used consistently throughout the system. So we're not going to end up with 5 different spellings for the same vendor. The required information for a vendor is their name, their type, and their phone number. So we are getting phone numbers for every vendor. Now, having said that, there are about, 100 vendors left from the PATS, the Dwelling Live system, where we were not able to get their phone number. Hopefully we'll be able to get some of those when they check in, if they check in. But they're in the system currently without a phone number. The new interface does not allow a vendor to be created without a phone number, so we won't be creating any new ones. You can also see here when that vendor was added, and all these columns are sortable, so I can go in and sort by the add date. And you can see, let's see, August 13th, I guess. Now let's go back to the top. October 2nd, I haven't added one, but we're going to add one in a minute. When it was updated last, the last entry into the community, and how many times that vendor's actually been admitted to the community. And in the production system, when we go live, these numbers will be updated dynamically, obviously, as check-ins occur. You also have the ability for any vendor to go and click on Manage, and you can go in and update information. So the main General tab, this is an approved vendor. Its name is Crystal Fall Pools. Its type is Pools and Spas. Its phone number. We are also keeping the URL, and I'll show you why that is in a little bit if we have it. It's not required, but it's nice to have. Employees is where you add or maintain employees. So if I wanted to add additional employees as a guard, I could go add those new employees here. Vehicles, we're not currently tracking vehicles for vendors, but we will be at some point when we integrate the LPR plate reads with the check-ins. So keep that in mind. And also admits. Let me actually go out of here and go into Arrow and manage it. And so you can see for Arrow, so this is a better one. It has employees, no vehicles, but admits, you can actually see which lots Arrow is currently registered to service. So I can go into a vendor and then see the residents that are using that vendor. And the only reason I can do this is because all these residents picked the exact same Arrow exterminating. And this ties them together in a consistent, controllable way. So the catalog is incredibly important, and it's important that the information in it is accurate. So that's going to take me to the unapproved vendors tab. Okay, so these are two vendors I just created for this video, but a resident can create a new vendor. When a resident creates a new vendor, uh, it saves it, but it's unapproved, so it cannot be used to be registered. So until a guard approves or determines that it shouldn't be approved, that vendor is sitting there unapproved, and the resident can't use it until that is taken care of, which means when you see a number here, you need to go in and deal with the unapproved vendors in a timely fashion so that the process can move forward. So I'm going to go in, and the first one is ABC Maid Service. Now, on the surface, it looks great. We've got ABC Maid Service. They're cleaning. We have a number. So you're like, well, I'm going to approve that. Well, no, you can't do that yet because you first, and most importantly, you need to verify that this really isn't a duplicate of something that already exists. So I'm going to go to the approved vendors and I'm going to start a search for ABC. And we can see, well, hold on here. There's ABC Maids. We already have ABC Maids by the name ABC Maids, and the unapproved vendor is ABC Maid Service. Well, I can tell you those are the same company, and we don't want to approve this one. So in this case, what you would do is you go into Manage, and you would delete it. First, look at who created it. Submitted by. So once you determine it's unapproved, you need to contact this person via email or text or a phone call and let them know that the vendor they've created is actually already existing in the system and it's ABC Maids. After the initial onboarding process we're going through, most of the residents will understand how to do this. The volume of these is going to be pretty low in terms of those that shouldn't be approved, that are duplicates. But we're going to have some of those, especially in the startup phase. So a number of things going on there around unapproved vendors. So this one I'm going to delete because it is a duplicate. So I'm going to delete that one. Now the next one is Closets by Design. Once again, it looks like the name is reasonable. Honestly, what I do is I go and I do a quick check. I do a search, Closets by Design, and I'll do Phoenix. And I'll see if such a thing exists. And I see, Closets by Design. And I can go to their website and I can see their phone number and so forth. So I'm like, okay, we have a Closets by Design. So I'm usually pretty comfortable at that point saying that this is valid. But I also want to check under approved vendors. Do I have anything by design? No, there's no by design. Let's do Closets. I don't see that vendor. So I feel fairly safe that, okay, this is one I can approve. And once I approve it, if I go to the approved list and I start looking for closets, I can see Closets by Design, and now it's approved and residents can use it. So that is the unapproved vendors, and we'll do some of those during the training so you get comfortable with it. It's probably, the whole vendor process is going to require some adjustment and practice on your part. So that is the unapproved vendor process. The last thing I want to show you is how do you add a new vendor? Let's say you are at the guard gate, a vendor comes in, you call the resident, they say admit them, but that vendor is not in the vendor catalog. So in that scenario, you're going to have to create that vendor. So you go to the Vendors tab, and you would click on New Vendor. You would enter the vendor's name, New Vendor. I'm just making this one up. You have to add a type. Let's see, I'll say it's appliances, and then you need to get their phone number. So maybe it's 480-555-656-4333. And then if you are there and the employee's there, you should go ahead and ask their name, John Smith. And then you can create that vendor, new vendor. And you get a review screen here. Eventually, we'll want to start adding vehicle license plates, but this is where we are now. We've got John Smith as the employee, and currently there's no admits. And so we would just hit save. Okay. And then if I go to approve vendors, if you create it as a guard, it will automatically be approved. It won't go to unapproved. And I had new vendor. Okay, so there's the new vendor that was just created. Now you also have the ability to delete vendors. You really probably shouldn't be doing that from the Approved Vendors tab, but I'm going to delete the new vendor because it was just for show in this video. So there's a lot going on underneath the vendors tab. Fortunately, because we have almost 1,500 vendors, many, or most, the vast majority of vendors are already in the system. The other thing I want to show you while I'm here is what does this look like for the resident. So I'm going to actually log into my test account as a resident. I've got to get my password here. And then my PIN. Okay. So when a resident is using the system, they have a vendors tab, and they also can go to the catalog. And for them, when they go to the catalog and click on a vendor, well, what do they see? They see the same information, except it's clickable. So when the URL is added, the resident can go straight to that URL. So we have residents now capable of doing searches for vendors. They may say, hey, I want to see babysitting services that have been used by people in the neighborhood. And then they can click on it, and they could get the phone number and the URL if the company had one, and voila, they're on their way to getting a babysitter. So the hope is this catalog grows and becomes more complete in terms of the information it has over time. So I'll go back now to the guard page, and that's vendors, and so that's where I'm going to stop this video.